So I typed in Google why, I meant to put why is black women bald. But as you can see, even before I was able to finish type it, it completed the sentence. And that's what you see there, why black women bald. And the reason why I did this was I'm going to use it to prove that we are the Israelites. If there's one example that proves that we are the Israelites, is the so-called black woman. The fact that out of all women on the planet Earth, she's the one that's the most bald. Okay, the East Indian woman has her hair. The so-called Chinese woman has her hair. The so-called Japanese woman has her hair. The so-called, even the so-called Eskimo woman, which some of them may be Gadites, which means they would be Israelites, even they have their hair. The so-called Polynesian women, women of the Fiji Islands and the Hawaiian Islands, they have their hair. And last but not least, the so-called white woman has her hair. Now, the only woman left, well, you got the Hamite women, the pygmy women, they're bald too, but they're not our people. All right, just one look at them, you can tell they're not our people. They don't have the same spirit as the so-called black woman. But the only woman that's left that doesn't really have her hair, and I'm talking about the majority of them, is the so-called black woman. Okay, the so-called black woman. And that proves that they're of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, meaning the head tribes, meaning the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judah. And this proves that we are, or this is one of the main examples that proves that we are the Israelites. Now, what I did was I typed in, like I said, why is black women bald? And this is what came up. According to Google, black women in particular are prone to a type of hair loss called traction alopecia, which is caused by heat, chemicals, and tight styles that pull at the root or at the hair root, including some braids, dreadlocks, extensions, and weaves. And again, out of all those groups that I mentioned, the different groups of women that do have their hair, the ones that buy weaves the most and wigs the most, you guessed it, is the so-called black woman. And there's a reason for that. Now that's Google explanation to why the so-called black woman is bald. And here's the real reason why they are bald. And this goes back to Isaiah 3:16. It says, moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty. Haughty means mean. Look the word haughty up. Look up the definition. It means mean in a prideful way. And that is the majority of our women. They have a real attitude problem. Okay, they're most of the time they're negative. And that's why so-called black men are waking up and they're staying away from them, because of their funky negative attitude. And it's right here in the scripture. Who the hell could this be talking about? Because the daughters of Zion are haughty. Them so-called Jewish women, they don't have the attitude like the so-called black woman has. Come on, let's keep it real. Maybe a few of them might have a stank attitude, but the majority of them, they could be pleasant to talk to. Okay, but the so-called black woman, on the whole, she's very unpleasant to talk to. Anyone who's dealt with the so-called black woman knows what I'm talking about. So much so to where it's gotten to be a problem between the relationship between the so-called black man and the so-called black woman. The so-called black woman act like, on the whole, the so-called black man is stupid. Okay, she has this air about her that she's superior and he's inferior. You see it all the time, that he's stupid, that he isn't worth her time, because the majority of these so-called black women, they go after power. And who has the most power right now? The so-called white man. So the majority of them, deep down inside, they really want to get with the so-called white man, because he's the power man. He's the man with the power. And it's a universal fact, it's a known fact that women respect power. Women are drawn to power. Okay, that's that hypergamous nature of the woman. She's drawn to power. She's attracted by power. Okay? So there you go. The most powerful man on the planet Earth right now is the so-called white man. Done deal. Okay? Anyway, moreover the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks, again, pride, proud, and wanton eyes, undisciplined eyes, lustful eyes, everything that well, not everything, but every man, that's what I want to say, every man that is attractive, that they deem attractive, it doesn't matter if they have a husband. Secretly, they want that man, okay? And when I say want him, I mean to have sex with him. That's an example of wanton eyes. Look up the word wanton. And walking and mincing as they go. Yeah, you know what it means, walking and mincing as they go. And making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. What is that? That means take away their hair. That's why they have to rely on the wigs and the weaves. That is why they are bald. They're as bald as Kojak. Okay. Kojak was a character created by Telly Savalas in the 1970s. All you gotta do is Google Telly Savalas and Kojak, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I am reading to you the real reason why the so-called black woman is bald. Now we saw the reason according to Google. Now we're seeing the real truth from the book of truth, which is the Bible. Holy means true, Bible means book. True book. Therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. Now, if that isn't explicit enough for you, let's jump down to the 24th verse. And it shall come to pass that instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink. And this is talking about her vagina, because she doesn't, well, first of all, when you go into the history, there were rituals that women went through, purification rituals, which proves once again women are not the same as men. Men don't have to go through purification rituals, but you women do. No, we don't, but you women do, because you're the weaker vessel. You're totally different from us. You know, feminism has taught you the same as us. No, no way. So back in the past, if you go in the book of Esther, it clearly tells you this. Women had purification rituals in where they bathed in sweet-smelling oils for about a year. Okay? 6 months in a certain oil, another 6 months in a certain oil. You know, a brother can put that scripture in the comment section, all right, for reference of that. So by the time that woman came to her man, she was smelling sweet, all right? She was immensely delightful to be around. So now that practice is gone, so this is what is meant by it shall come to pass, instead of sweet smell, there shall be stink. And instead of a girdle or rent, totally out of shape. What does a girdle do for you? It gives you shape, right? Women wear, I remember in the 70s, they had commercials like Playtex girdle, the 24-hour girdle. So a woman would wear a girdle to enhance her shape. So this use of the word girdle here represents shape. So instead of a well-set shape, a rent, meaning no shape. And the average so-called woman, come on, black woman, not so-called woman, black woman, the average so-called black woman, they're totally out of shape. Totally out of shape, okay? Totally out of shape. Instead of a girdle, a rent, and instead of well-set hair. Now, at one time, believe it or not, one time the so-called black woman had well-set hair. How can we prove this? Mary Magdalene. All right, Mary Magdalene not only washed the feet of the Lord, but dried the Lord's feet with her hair. The scriptures tell us this, okay? So that is proof at one time the so-called black woman, because Mary Magdalene was a so-called black woman, she had hair damn near, probably hair damn to her back, okay? For her to be able to dry the Lord's feet with her hair, come on. And they weren't wearing no weaves or wigs back then, okay? That was her real hair, her well-set hair. I'm talking about Mary Magdalene. So instead of well-set hair, baldness. How you get around that? So this is proof that we're the Israelites, because out of all the women on the planet Earth, our women are the most bald. Okay? Our women are the most bald. All right? When you look at the average so-called black woman, she always have a wig, either a wig or a weave on her head. And most of them go for that blonde weave and that blonde wig, because secretly they want to be like the so-called white woman, who they claim to hate. If that's not the case, why are you wearing a blonde wig on your head if you ain't trying to be like the so-called white woman? Huh? And instead of well-set hair, baldness, and instead of a stomach, a girding of sackcloth, and beauty instead of burning. And the majority of our women, they are ugly. They are ugly. Telling you like it is. But they're going to get back their beauty in the kingdom. So that's another reason why we're looking forward, us men are looking forward to the kingdom, because we're going to have drop-dead, beautiful, sexy, well-smelling, or good-smelling woman in the kingdom, man. Absolutely. That's what we're going to have. We're going to have the pick of the litter. Okay? That's what, plus they're going to be virgins on top of it. Okay? So, there you go. But anyway, hopefully you brothers were edified by this video. I was just sitting here meditating on an example to prove that we're the Israelites, and a stone cold example is the fact that our women are bald, and that's according to Bible prophecy, and we just read it in Isaiah the 3rd chapter, beginning at the 16th verse.